Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. For this episode, we're doing an Ask the Experts. We have Chris White joining us. Chris White helped me get my first job at Microsoft. We're going to talk about some trends in education, how schools have adopted to remote learning, and just kind of make some predictions about what life might look like post pandemic and how you, as a partner, can work with these schools to help them during this challenging time and then emerge stronger afterwards. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and let's get started. All right, welcome everyone. Today I am joined by the Chris White. Chris is the reason why I got into Microsoft, how I got into Microsoft. Obviously a story for another day, but super thankful for him recognizing some talent in me and giving me an opportunity. So really excited to bring him on this YouTube series that we have going on called Ask the Experts. To hear a little bit what he can share with us. So just to get started, Chris, can you introduce yourself and how you joined the Microsoft education team?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe, and thanks for having me on. I've been with Microsoft now for about 4 years, probably about 6 months before you came on board. And I identified the fact that we needed to have more high quality education and learning folks who really have K-12 understanding. So that's, Joe, that's why it's misery loves company. So I'm glad to have you on board. I'm just thrilled with the success that you've had as you've gone through the system. So I've been with Microsoft now. I'm working on my 5th year. Before that, I spent 24 years in the New York State public school system as a classroom teacher, a building level leader, a district level leader. Spent most of my time as a director of technology, guiding the technology process, 13 years. And I say that specifically because that's a complete cycle through a district. And I wanted to start with the kids who were in kindergarten, the kids that I came in with, I graduated with. When they graduated, I left and came to Microsoft. So I've had a number of different experiences, a number of different lives, and focusing primarily on the K-12 space. So I'm thrilled to be here at Microsoft. I'm what's known as a modern workplace specialist. That only means something to Microsofties. Essentially, my role here is to support the sales team in deployment, implementation, and also identifying opportunities inside of an account. And I also do a lot of K-12 translation. So I take folks who don't really know a lot about K-12 and I say, well, when he says this, this is actually what he means. And as we move forward, just kind of serve as what they call an industry expert. So awesome opportunity in Microsoft, and so glad to have the opportunity to spend some time with Joe before he left us and went on to bigger and brighter pastures. He's probably going to edit that out, but so that's who I am and where I'm from, and that's what lands me in this seat here today.
So let's talk about the year 2020. We are now leaving that behind us, but a lot of that continues on as the school year started in 2020. It's going to end in 2021. I imagine you've been extremely busy with this switch to remote learning. We've all had to experience remote everything. How has your work changed over the past year?
So, of all the folks that I talk to, of all the folks who have traditional non-work at home jobs, I've had it really relatively easy. I work out of my home. I have since I've been with Microsoft. I wasn't sure how that was going to go, but now I really wouldn't trade it in for anything else. So, when COVID hit, I was like, okay, it just means that I'm not hopping in a car. I would travel, 5,000 miles in a month, literally, Travis, going all over New York State, meeting with folks and being invited into their districts and running and having conversations. Those conversations moved to online. We'd been using Skype for Business forever, and then we moved to Teams, so it wasn't really that hard of a transition. What I saw through other people's eyes was the struggles that some folks had with living and working in a remote environment. I had already been there, so it was just more of the same. But folks who have never had a video call now had to take their profession and move it online, and that's kind of how my job shaped as well, because I was having to have conversations with folks and shifting things into a way, helping them understand how to use Teams as a communication collaboration platform and what that really means and how you can translate what happened in the classroom to an online environment. And as technology does, technology is an amplifier. If you're a really good teacher, technology is going to amplify that, and you're going to become a really good teacher online. And if you struggled as a classroom teacher, you were going to struggle in the online environment. So I moved from, instead of driving to Rochester or driving to Buffalo or going out to Eastern Suffolk BOCES, to just jumping on a Teams call. And it was it's a lot less travel, but it was great because the technology was there, and I was able to help those folks who were having some of those issues and getting them moving forward. And the big thing is that I finally got a team. I worked very extensively with the Microsoft Stores folks, so I couldn't be on site to work in Long Island, but we would work with our Microsoft Stores folks, and that great team there. We put together a professional development program for the New York City DOE that was absolutely phenomenal. We've trained now, I think, upwards of 30,000 people. We've done a number of different things, and I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to have that team to come together if it weren't for COVID. So some of the ways COVID was a good thing. Some of the ways it was a struggle. But, like everyone else, we're finding our way through it and finding ways to be successful and to keep our flow going. That's for sure.
That's interesting because initially you would think Chris used to be at all of these schools talking to all of these directors of technology, all of these superintendents. Now he can't travel there. How does he still communicate? Obviously, we know that Teams exists. We've been using it before the pandemic, but just the ability of the education industry to quickly adopt that and almost increase your cadence of how you're able to communicate with them, right? It wasn't, I have to drive out to you. Now we can just jump on a call, and I don't need to teach you how to do Teams anymore because you know how to unmute yourself, right? Like it's that growth happened pretty quickly, and I've experienced that as well.
Yeah, just to give you a case in point, today is a typical day. I have 9 meetings today, so I wouldn't have been able to do that pre-COVID. I jumped from the New York City DOE in Brooklyn to the New York City DOE in Manhattan to a team call, which was who knows where they were running it, and then I back out to Long Island. And then a discussion with a vendor, and then I did a statewide phone call today. So this was all from my seat, and I was able to do that. And that we shouldn't fail to recognize the fact of how effective we can be if we use these new technologies. We have to use it well. We've got to make sure that we're giving it, obviously, regular breaks and wellness and so forth. But the reality is that if this were, I wouldn't have been able to do that. That's a week's worth of work because I would have had to travel to these folks. And the fact that folks may be in lockdown or their folks are remote, we actually have more access than we've ever had to folks. The other piece is, though, that people like having Microsoft into their district because it's, when you come around with that Microsoft brand and you're walking down their hallway, that's kind of like a badge of honor. So I miss out on the opportunity to be able to connect with folks in that way and walk through their halls and give them the opportunity to walk through their library and be treated as an honored guest. And I'll look forward to that when and if we have an opportunity to do that. But definitely in the remote work and learning environment, there are many more opportunities now than we've had in the past. That's for sure.
So working mainly with schools in the Northeast, I know you have a national impact, but looking at your neighborhood, the Northeast, what are some trends that you're seeing in education?
Yeah, the first trend that we really need to pay attention to is wellness. In terms of how the brain, how the human who is not geared, their DNA is not set up for this type of environment. They're a social animal. They need to be connecting with folks. Some folks more than others. But in terms of how that's going, the long-term impact on teacher careers, in terms of being on and working all the time. There's no count. You can't count on having a break. as a teacher now. You can technically work all the time, and teachers, as we know, are borderline workaholics. They love what they do. They are passionate about what they do. They're willing to take on a lot of responsibility to be able to do what they want to do. They made a choice for this lifestyle. And now this lifestyle is impacting them emotionally, cognitively. So we need to be very, 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 very cautious about how we're helping our professionals move forward with this and learn about how to do online and remote learning. So that's really the first thing that we're really going to learn. And the next piece we're going to learn is, okay, so now everybody has done a video call, because before COVID, not everybody did a Skype. No, not everybody did a FaceTime or a Google Meet. And if you did it, it was kind of a weird thing. It was like, oh, I'm not, but now everybody's done it. Now, how is this going to create flexibility in education programs? How is this going to allow schools to be able to schedule, instead of a 5-day a week, maybe a 1+1, right? A 1-day direct instruction with 1 day of working or something like that, and calculate that as seat time. So I'm really excited about how our principals and our assistant superintendents and our superintendents and our boards of education are going to be taking a look at this amazing opportunity that is available now with technology to be able to expand education programming, to be able to provide learning opportunities for students that weren't available before. We use the example of German. Not every school can run German, and well, wouldn't it be great to have an opportunity to have students connect with a remote teacher in that respect? So I'm very excited about how this is going to impact programming. And of course, everybody's talking about snow days, right? Mm-hmm. Joe, you're from the snow belt.
Yeah.
You live in the snow belt. I think we got more snow last week than you guys did in the Hudson Valley. But I think that the tip of the iceberg is, what are you going to do about snow days? Well, that's something that needs to be taken a look at, I would imagine. I don't know. Well, we're going to learn how snow days were ingrained into the culture and the DNA of folks. People need that break. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. But I would imagine us doing, instead of professional development days, or in addition to professional development days, doing remote learning days. So there are days that are built in that give some flexibility in a schedule for students, like the day before a really long vacation. Maybe that becomes a remote learning day. Who knows? But we've got the flexibility now. We've got the technology infrastructure to support it. Now we just need a leadership to step up and say, this is what's good for kids. This is what's great for communities. Let's make this happen. So some flexibility in the schedule is a key thing. Teachers as free agents. So I know you and I have talked about this in the past, but I take a look at other professionals in the field, and with doctors or dentists or lawyers, and there are those that work for the big firms, and then there are those who kind of do their own thing, and they've got the flexibility to do that. Teachers, honestly, don't have the ability to do that. Now, with remote learning and remote technology, more folks are getting exposed to this and would prefer to do a remote type of environment. So why wouldn't these folks put themselves in an open market and make themselves a free agent, like Alex Rodriguez, putting themselves, you start for a few years, you get under the contract, and then you're given free agency. Why wouldn't we have our star teachers want to sell themselves out and have some type of lucrative experience? Maybe that's something that's coming down the line as well, in teacher free agency. There's a number of initiatives that are going to be coming out of this, and I'm really excited about what this next version of teaching and learning is going to look like for students, for communities, and for leadership.
That's really good. We have super efficiency, super productivity, but we need to balance that with wellness. And then figuring out where wellness fits in and how you almost have to prescribe wellness, right? Maybe a snow day is a remote learning day. Maybe it's a wellness day, because you can be everywhere at any time. And how do you get people to actually unplug in order to avoid some burnout? At the same point, teachers are elevated in their status because they can now be anywhere at any time. And if they're really fantastic, then they can be fantastic anywhere. So those are great insights. Obviously, schools are doing a lot right now, and they're doing the best that they can with what they have. Where do schools need help? What are their biggest asks when it comes to technology? What are they asking you for?
Well, what they'll need help is, they don't need more tools. No, they have plenty of tools. They have more tools than they know what to do with. What they want and what they need are ways to connect the technology directly to the curriculum. Take the textbook example. That was a way to take this technology of paper and wed it to the words on the page and eventually the pictures and then eventually color pictures, to a way to tell their story in a creative way, the content. What schools need help with is meaningful ways to have content available. We're not going to get away anytime soon with the whole textbook model where you go to the place and get a thing and read this and do that. I mean, that's a part of the rhythm. That's like a 4/4 key time signature in music. You're just not going to get away with it. You can have variations off of it. You can add different notes in there. But really, you're not going to get away from the 4/4 time signature. So we're going to need to be able to provide that. And I think the technology industry has got to step up and provide teachers with adequate access to content to support teaching and learning. I think data too is going to be a key thing, and this isn't something that everybody's talking about because it has to do a lot with data privacy, with privacy and student data privacy. But I think that if we can find that angel inventor who can take artificial intelligence and and I know folks are trying to work on this, give predictive analytics. Not predictive analytics, but give real-time analytics for students, families, and teachers so that students can make up their mind on what they want to do. I think that would be probably a great next threshold, to be able to use the power of the cloud to stop being so walled for technology vendors and work together to build out learning solutions which empower multiple data sources. We're working on that at Microsoft. I'm sure other people are working on it as well. But the reality is that we need to be able to give students and teachers a real-time assessment on progress that's meaningful, we can work together to build out appropriate learning goals for students so that we get rid of grade levels, we get rid of report cards, we get rid of progress reports, we get rid of all of those things that are horrendous to teacher time, and we allow teachers to get back into the classroom to work with the students and have some meaningful data that's collected in a trusted environment. And by trusted, I mean it's not done by a vendor who will then go and sell it for marketing purposes. You're going to work with data that's going to be resident, and you're going to work with data that's meaningful. And we give those teachers an opportunity to create a learning environment that's dynamic and engaging so that we can reach each student on their own level. I think that we're on the threshold of being able to do that. I think we've got some laws that need to be developed so that it's not abused by the corporate side of things in terms of what are you doing with this data and more transparency. But I think that's that student data report card that's on a daily basis, the how did I do today? It's right there automatically. It's not onerous for teachers. I think that's something that's probably coming down the pipe, and that's something that schools need help to do. The last thing that schools need help to do is to be provided with an environment that allows for one-to-one as a service, so that rather than buying the device and then having to deal with the recycling and the upgrade and all that kind of stuff, they're paying a nominal fee over a period of times, over years, for these devices. And then those devices are managed by the manufacturer. The manufacturer comes and takes them away. They roll in the new devices, and then you're on a constant upgrade cycle. This whole thing of buying a device and then keeping it in it, that is so wasteful. We need to find a better way to provide one-to-one devices for schools that are on a service basis, like renting a car or renting a house.
Mm-hmm.
You would rent your devices. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Instead of making it a capital expenditure, you make it an operations expense. It makes it more feasible for schools to be able to do their thing. I would like to see the hardware vendors step up and provide that type of model for folks.
And with that model comes more support for schools. Because right now, if you're a device seller, you sell the device and then the customer uses it for 5 years, and then you go in that fourth year and you try to sell them another device. And there's a lapse of time between there. Where if you're offering a service, that relationship continues throughout. So if you're having an issue or you need some help or you need to change something, you have that point of contact. You don't have to wait for that big tender to come out and then respond and all that other stuff that tends to happen spread out versus what could occur on a monthly or yearly basis.
Right, and since it takes 18 months, at least now, to develop this new display technology or new device, that's usually the turnaround for innovation. Wouldn't it be great to cut that in half so that every year you can have, what schools are asking for is a Surface-like device at the $250 price range that they don't have to maintain. That's what schools need, and that's what we need to have in order to have a one-to-one in any school district. That one that doesn't require maintenance, that you send it back to the manufacturer when it's broken and get another one back, and then it's got the latest and the greatest. And then when VR becomes more of a thing, and it's ready and enabled, you're able to do that. I think that would level the playing field rather than honestly treating schools like pieces of meat that need to be acquired. There actually would be partners in this process rather than having to go out and make that big device deal. Those days would be gone. Yes, technically the money keeps on coming in to schools, whether it's private or public, but the reality is that money can be used more efficiently and can be spread across a larger set of students if you can have a model that's more palatable for schools on a devices service basis.
Awesome. A lot to dig into there, but I want to keep on going with the questions. Any predictions on teaching and learning post-pandemic? I mean, the vaccines are out there. They're being given out to folks. Eventually, this pandemic will be over. Are we back to chalkboards and textbooks? What does the post-pandemic school look like? What's your prediction there?
Well, because Joe, having worked in K-12, it's a pendulum, so things are going to swing both ways. Right now, we're at the very tech-heavy wave, so we're going to see a pendulum swing back where people are going to go in and get isolated in the classroom again. They're going to go back and reestablish the relationships the teachers are in the hallways and all that stuff that they missed, and that's the good stuff. I predict that families are going to have a renewed interest or appreciation of classroom teachers and what happens in the classroom, having their own learners at home for a period of time. So I think that there's going to be a short period of time of euphoria. I think that we're gonna run into a 1920s kind of optimism time once finally this thing is gone and done, and I think that we're going to find new ways to integrate technology. It took a pandemic, but I think the instructional technology is now here to stay. I can remember coming into an environment where technology was a side thing and wasn't integrated into the experience, and then I watched it and helped it get moved into the integration. I mean, I'm so old that I period by period attendance in the classroom, internet in the classroom. That's kind of when I started my career is helping schools move to an internet in the classroom scenario. And so now I think it's pretty much here to stay. And now the question is, so what are you going to do with it? How are you going to adapt the new technologies to your culture to empower your students to be better learners? So anyone who's making predictions post-COVID, I'm not sure. I would never put myself in a place where, oh yeah, it's good. We're going to have flying cars because boy, look how well that turned out. But we are having electric cars, long before you know it. But I think that what we're going to have in the learning space is we're going to have a redefinition about what resources are valuable for students and how do we evaluate student engagement. I think that was something that was brewing in classrooms before. People are asking about it now. It's not just a matter if they show up to your class, but what are they doing when they get there? I think that we're going to have more AI, especially for students that struggle in terms of AI coaches. I think that's a real thing that's going to be happening. But I predict this period of time of euphoria for 5 to 8 years after the fact, and that's really going to be the time when instructional technology vendors need to pay heed. And it's also coming at a time where your mom and pop shops that offer these free services for account information, they're going to dry up. You're not going to really see that level of information. You're going to see what I call a centralization after COVID, where you're going to have the bigger companies gobbling up the smaller companies and it becoming more centralized. So the days of going to the conference and seeing that great little widget that you can plug in because of privacy requirements, because of cybersecurity and the attacks that are happening on schools, I think you're going to see that market dry up a little bit. And that concerns me. because I think there's been some great innovation in driving the market, and I'm hopeful that there are going to be some relief for folks who have got great ideas, so that they don't have to necessarily go to a Microsoft and say, "Hey, I've got this great tool." I would like to see some more diversification, but we have to take the privacy and the cybersecurity stuff very seriously, more seriously than we are. The days of going out and getting a plugin for your browser, I think they're gone, and the pendulum's gonna swing back more towards a centralized environment. And hey, that's great for Microsoft because we've always been about centralization. But the reality is that unfortunately those mom and pop shops are going to go. The last prediction I have is the work that we've been doing with regards to Power Apps and Flow, what used to be called Flow. I think that what I call citizen programming and building applications based on a cloud experience, that's a real thing, and I think that's something that's going to impact schools as well. It started with, in my experience, it started with if this then that, and now Microsoft, we have our own solution, and with the acquisition of GitHub and the community that's built around that, I think that that's where that innovation is going to land. So we'll have a community building out of that space in the K-12 learning community. I'm really excited about who's going to build the best easy button. That's the person who's going to be able to market themselves more effectively. So I'm really bullish on great stuff that's going to be happening post-COVID. We've learned a lot, we've seen a lot, and we have many opportunities to grow. And I call it the Roaring 20s because, ironically, we are now in the 20s. So we'll have to see where this goes.
That's a very great point that we are in the 20s now. That's very interesting. This euphoria back for the classroom, right? Because people have been away from it. As they go back in, maybe there'll be some investment in some more classroom-focused technology, right? Because everyone went one-to-one over the last couple of years. Maybe there's some interactive display work, some response tools, some digital ways to display some student work. Maybe there's some better camera setups for remote, to use an old term, distance learning. Maybe there'll be some more opportunity for that too. So, well, that's great.
Come on, Apple. Put a camera on my watch, Apple. That's what I want. Where's that camera? That's what I want. That's what we need. I want Dick Tracy. Where is that? Where are we at? Come on now. Cupertino. Step up.
Anything else before we end our conversation for today?
I welcome and I thank the opportunity to be able to share these thoughts and views. Just disclaimer: these are not official Microsoft views. I happen to be employed by Microsoft, and I apologize if I've offended anybody by my views. Or as Joe, as you know, I don't necessarily pull the punches, and if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. I just wanted to encourage the folks who are watching this to be involved locally in their school and make sure that if you've got a gift to give it to that classroom, to any classroom. Go out and become more involved. If don't necessarily run for the Board of Education, that's okay if that's your thing, but there are always opportunities in local classrooms, in the library of the school, in the local public library to go on and share your gifts. They're now with the video conferencing technologies, it's so easy to build out mentorships and coaching opportunities. Just take this opportunity that's been built out with COVID and folks in remote technologies and find ways that you can give back. You'll get more out of it than you'll give, and I encourage folks to get hyper involved in their communities because there's going to be a lot of change. You want to make sure that the right voices are heard, and you want to make sure that your voice is one part of the choir. So folks who are listening or watching this event, please get involved locally now more than ever. They need people who have gifts and talents, and there are plenty of opportunities out there. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to the folks tuning in, watching this, thank you so much for the work that you're doing on a daily basis to keep our students learning. Chris and I are both parents. we're both former educators. We appreciate all the support that you show to education and making sure that our society continues to run, because education is a key part of that. So thank you. And of course, like and subscribe so that we can bring more of this content to you. If you want to talk to Chris more, let me know. Put it in the comments. We'll get some responses from him if you have specific questions. But thank you so much. Make it a fantastic day.